yeah, I don't have a whole lot to say about this one.
Oh,
Um,
damn, your game's loud. Let me turn that shit right down.
Ooh, I can't hear the stream because I have it muted. It would create a really annoying delay in between Christian's
Yeah,
face
no,
and
no, I
voice.
wouldn't want to do that. But anyways, so what'd you play, John? I mean, the people can see
I
if they're watching
played,
on YouTube or live or whatever, but
yes. If you can't tell, I played Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse,
three,
from the
not one, not
Anniversary
two,
Collection. No,
three.
Castlevania
Numero
3. Trace.
uno dos
You can do
tres.
it.
I had a fucking count in my
Um,
head or out
um,
loud, whatever. Words
I've
are
done
hard.
that. Listen, the amount of times that I would sing the alphabet to myself while I was working at the
Oh,
video store
all
to
the
put
time, dude.
DVDs away
All the
properly,
time. I still do
um,
that. Anytime I'm sorting like my
embarrassing.
Pokemon
Yeah,
cards or anything like that, you
yeah.
know? It's like, okay, this is
A,
fucking
B,
Piplup
C,
here, and I'm like
right.
Piplup goes fuck LMNOP.
LMNOP. Right. Mm-hmm.
I do that, you know. I don't always have to start from A because
Right.
MNOP is so, you
Hmm.
know, and then QRST I can also usually like, you know, start
I
from there.
love.
But
I
what's
would love
really
to comment
embarrassing is when I
just
think
real
I can
quick.
start from say LMNOP, but I
Yeah.
couldn't, and then I have to go back to the beginning and but
Oh,
anyways,
yeah.
that's
That is
embarrassing.
embarrassing.
But you were
So
saying, sir.
I really want to. I just want to comment real quick on the opening scroll of
Mm,
text at the beginning of this game, because it says something real basic about how Dracula was trying to make all of the people bad and not good. So the Belmonts were going to make the people good and not bad again.
hell yeah.
It's like
Hell
it's
yeah.
like real like dumbed down, and I think it could be like a mistranslation or
That's
something.
what I was gonna ask. Like, is it just a translation thing?
Curse of Dracula has begun. The fate of Europe lies with Trevor.
That was one
And
issue a lot of old games had where they had very limited space for when they had to do
yeah,
translations because Japanese, which is
mhm,
where a lot of these games were made and imported over from, is a
gets a
very
little short.
condensed written language, and
Right.
they have a
Mhm.
set amount of space whenever they translate it. So while they may have had
Right.
the equivalent of like a whole paragraph in
Hmm.
Japanese written out in that space, once it's translated to
Right.
English, they have, you know, a sentence and a half worth
You
of
get to see
room. So
me
like,
be a ding dong here trying to type my name into this Nintendo game. Can't figure that shit out for some
who
reason.
hasn't done that though?
I
Let's.
um so Castlevania 3, Dracula's Curse. It is a prequel to the first two games.
Okay, so it's
Um
first in the timeline, at least from the trilogy, the original trilogy.
yes.
Okay.
Yes, from the original trilogy, this is first in the timeline, and it is the game that the Netflix series Castlevania was based on. Fun fact.
Never ended up finishing
Uh,
it. I didn't like it that
yes,
much, but I
that's
don't know.
fair.
It was
The first
okay, but
the first season, to be honest, not great.
mm,
Second season, my
a
favorite,
lot better. Yeah.
a lot better. Third and fourth season, meh.
What
It's
about
better than the first one.
the third game? Is it better?
Uh, yeah. So Castlevania 3 so far is pretty on par with Castlevania 1 to
So
me
it
in
looks very
terms of.
Castlevania 1.
Yes,
Like,
the aesthetic is Castlevania 1. The character sprite literally is a like color transformation of
mhm,
Simon Belmont's character sprite from the first game. A lot of these bricks and textures that you see around are just
reused
ripped
from
right
one.
from,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
just reused from the first game. The second game actually does have unique sprites and everything.
Look,
Um,
I don't care
but
if they reuse every single asset from the first
right,
one as long as it's
just make it
better
fun.
than the second.
That's fair.
Like, I
Yeah,
have yet
so
to finish the
it
second one.
is. As you can see, the entirety of the UI, and I'm sorry I paused here.
You're
Oh
fine.
God, I hope I cut
Don't worry
everything out. My footage. I think I did because I paused it and I cut away. But anyway, technical difficulties, everybody. So they reuse like literally the entire UI from the first game, and it plays just like the first game. You jump and whip, and it's linear. It's either up and down or right to left. You don't have to backtrack and try to figure it out. It is not in the Metroidvania style, like the second Castlevania tried to establish, but didn't really get going until Symphony of the
Yeah, it was a little.
um,
Yeah,
yeah, they had an idea. It was in its early days, and it wasn't fully
right.
realized. They had to work out the kinks, which
Yeah,
they did
exactly.
very well in Symphony of the Night, if you ask me.
So I've heard. So
Um,
I've heard.
yeah. So anyway, this game follows Trevor Belmont, as I mentioned.
Forever.
Trevor Belmont is an ancestor of Simon Belmont, the character from the first and second game, and he is the person who originally kills Dracula in
Mm.
his mighty castle.
How many times has
And
Dracula been killed at this point?
uh, good bit.
Okay.
Apparently, it's
Fair.
it's not that hard to resurrect people in this universe.
Hmm.
Um, in the show, they have something called Forge
Mm.
Masters, which may or may not be a real thing in fantasy. I'm not sure.
I mean, it's a
But they're
TV
basic.
show, I'm pretty sure.
Well, yeah. These people, however, do not make weapons. They
Oh
make
shit. Okay.
creatures called night creatures. They
Oh.
transform corpses into like demon monsters, and
So it's
the demon
FNAF.
monsters
They're
kind of.
taking the souls of
Um,
children and turning them into
well, pretty much anybody,
haunted
not children
animatronic. Oh, okay, okay, okay,
specifically.
okay.
Um,
Sorry.
any corpse they can get their hand on. They bring their soul back from the dead, and their soul inhabits their body, but their body transforms into like a demon monster. It was just mindless and bent to the will of the Forge Master.
Okay.
So that's
So
but
is that
that's in
like,
the show.
does
I think
Dracula have like minions that is doing this for him, or is
yes.
some dumbass like, if I bring back Dracula, he'll do whatever I want?
Yeah, no, Dracula has minions and servants. He kind of leads this world, the paranormal world.
Mm-hmm.
So since he's kind of in charge of it, everybody always wants him around. So if he's ever not around for whatever reason, usually a Belmont, they try to get him back around because he's
Fair
like in
enough.
charge.
Fair enough. Yeah,
So they,
that's fair. I mean, if my boss died, I don't know if I'd go through all that trouble to bring him back to life,
I
but to each their
yeah,
own, I guess, you know?
maybe not quite that much trouble. Like I'd recommend CPR or something.
Yeah, yeah, for
Um,
sure, for sure. But
but yeah, like maybe not quite this much trouble. In Symphony of the Night, his dark priest literally summons an entire replica of his castle, but upside down, to descend from the heavens. So that's a lot of work. That's got to be a lot
good
of effort
save.
magically.
Good save.
Yeah, I quickly get my ass handed to
Yeah,
me
I
though.
see that.
I mean, it's just
Good shit.
it's
Good shit.
just
It's a Castlevania game. That's gonna
it's a
happen a
Castlevania
lot.
game. Yeah. So that's the basic storyline of Castlevania 3. The only other two big things of note is that this is a game where you can choose your path in between levels.
That's
Uh,
cool. Okay, so a
you don't
little
really
less linearity than the first one, where it was literally
yes.
just this is the path, you
Um,
have to do it.
yeah. So for instance, the first time that I ever tried this game was a good long time ago, and I picked down. Um, because it forks the road like an upward path and downward path. And I picked
Hmm.
down for the second level. And this time I picked up, and it was a completely different level. So it
I like
takes you
that.
to a different level depending on the path that you
I
choose.
think
But
for an early Metroidvania type of situation, I think that's a much better solution than what they did with 2.
mhm,
Although Metroid
yeah,
obviously did it very well,
yeah, with an
back in
NES
the
style.
the
So,
80s, but I
mhm,
feel like that was something hard to replicate. I feel like it's still something hard to replicate well,
it
to be
is.
honest with you. Obviously,
It
they
is.
figured out the formula eventually, but
Mhm,
yeah, I think it was this idea was much better
yeah, yeah.
suited for
Um,
them and what they were doing.
so, other than the story, and the parting paths, like I said, you also have additional characters that you get to
Mm.
play as later in the game. This is the first period, the first period. Holy cow! The first appearance of Alucard, Dracula's
Of
son,
course, of course.
the
Yep,
vampire.
famous because of
Damn
Symphony of the
vampire.
Night, right?
Yes,
Okay.
Alucard is the player character in Symphony of the Night and has become a kind of staple mascot of the franchise. Everybody loves his character and specifically his like powers and abilities and his the way he's designed in Symphony of the Night has become his design. He looks like that in the
Are
show.
the Belmonts anything special other than, really good
Yes.
at killing beasts? Like, do they have any supernatural powers of their own, or
Some Belmonts are magic.
okay,
Richter Belmont, for instance, who is the Belmont that is after Simon, is magical because
okay,
of one of the other player characters in this game, actually. So Trevor Belmont being the ancestor, right? There's 4 player characters. There's a little dude named Grant that can climb up walls. There is Trevor, the main Belmont. There is Alucard, the son of Dracula.
Of course.
His special powers in this game are not as advanced as the ones in Symphony of the Night, of course, but he can.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah, he can.
Those
However,
death pits are still around.
Yes, I'm not.
Me
He can,
neither. That was
however,
facetious as hell.
transform himself. He can transform himself into a bat and
Okay.
fly around.
Okay.
And also, there's a character called Sypha, and Sypha is an elemental witch. So Sypha can summon like fire and ice and water and stuff like that. I don't think she can do a lot of water, but she does fire and ice all the time. So Trevor and Sypha have offspring. That's the Belmont line. And since Sypha was a witch, some of the Belmonts are magical.
Okay. I got you.
But also, the Belmonts, as it tries to explain in the opening scroll of this game, I didn't quite get to it. The Belmonts are a long family line of magical beast hunters, vampire hunters, and demon hunters. And their family has always been feared, it said, because of their great powers. So it's implied that the Belmonts are magical even by themselves.
Right.
Even though
not necessarily like they have magic powers so much as like maybe
not like
superhuman
Sypha, but
resistance or superhuman strength
like that.
or fighting
They're
skill.
definitely superhuman fighting skill for sure.
Yeah.
Just because of his ability
just
to
not
mow
necessarily
through.
Magic. They're like Captain America versus the Scarlet Witch.
Yes.
Right?
But Richter Belmont literally does have magical powers like Sypha.
Right. Yeah.
In later games. Richter Belmont
Captain
is the
America and Scarlet Witch had a child and
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Richter doesn't show up though until the next era of Castlevania games. You had these 3 and 2 Game Boy games, and then you had 4 for the Super Nintendo and Rondo of Blood for the PC Engine over there, and for the Genesis and a version over here. And then Rondo of Blood is the first game in the series that Castlevania Symphony of the Night is a sequel to. So Richter Belmont is a character in Symphony of the Night. And you just play as Alucard because there's like a whole plot involving a twist with Richter Belmont. So
is it just me, or are the bosses a little bit more reasonable? Or at least this first boss than the first.
The first boss was way more reasonable than the first game. I mean, the first boss in the first game isn't that crazy. It's just that bat that flies around. But like any boss after that, like the Medusa head and the Frankenstein.
Oh, God, yeah. Man, if you don't get the 2 of them like lined up on top of each other and just cheese it with some holy water or something, oof.
Yes.
Oof.
So anyway, you can see the diverging path right there. I took the the upper path, and it took me into this really awesome gear room, which is pretty much the last thing that I have to talk about Castlevania 3. Yeah.
Well, I have just a couple of questions, very simple questions, since it is a sequel of a series that you've played a fair bit of, and that we've talked about before. What makes this better than 1? I think it's pretty obvious to anybody that's heard us talk about 2 what makes it better than 2. But are there any real benefits to this one over 1 outside of the branching path, the extra replayability?
So not only does it have replayability with the branching path, but having multiple characters to play as the game progresses.
Do you get to choose between them, or
you get to literally transform between them mid-level.
Oh, cool. Very cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, I like that. That's
Which is pretty advanced for an NES game.
Yeah.
You know, that's not common. For sure. I'm having trouble hydrate. I'm having trouble remembering actually an NES game that does that other than this, really. Like Mario 2 we had to choose at the beginning.
I mean, you don't transform between characters, but some of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games, like Arcade Game or whatever, you could switch between, but you couldn't really like transform. I'm sure there are games.
I haven't made it that far in this game, so maybe that is incorrect, but I thought for sure you could transform between them, like in the middle of the level. At the very least, you can select them at the beginning.
Right. Okay.
But I think what makes this a little bit better than the first game is The first of all, the graphics I think look a little better. The artwork has improved slightly. And
I
the
would
soundtrack
maybe slightly.
is a
I
little
still
bit
have the
better.
same problem with this one that I had with the first one, where it's very messy.
It
Because
is.
I think it's because of the limitations. God, the fucking
It
death bits.
was.
Anyways, because of the
I can't
limitations of the
stand
NES,
Christian. You have
some
no
of the
idea how
colors
pissed I was about
clash.
that one. Oh my god. I don't get it. Why do you fall off the stairs? You shouldn't
It's
fall off
just
the stairs.
it's
It shouldn't
yeah.
be possible. That
I
doesn't make
agree, but it
sense.
is.
You should be locked onto the stairs when you walk forward. The whole thing is you have to press the up button or the down button when you're
To
on the
go up or
stairs
down
to
the
move
stairs.
up or
Yeah,
down. If you
yeah.
press over, you just move
Just
backwards
walk
and
off.
forwards on a platform. You just walk off as if it's an
Mhm.
edge. And I walked off the screen and it didn't even take me down to the next screen. It just
Nope.
killed me. And that's
This isn't Mega Man, my
bullshit.
guy. This is Castlevania. You
Uh,
die. Um,
yeah, you just die.
anything this game did worse than one?
It's a lot harder than one once you get
Really?
to any
Okay.
level that's not level one. Yeah.
Okay.
For instance, for reference, if you'd like, see what I mean?
It's
What
just
is that?
fucking just
That's
dead.
ridiculous. That
Oh,
happens
that's
a lot
great.
on this level. I just
That's
gave
great.
up. I just stopped playing after like 29 minutes of footage. I was like, fuck it,
Oh,
we can loop it if we need it.
the
Like,
the anniversary collection supports save states, right?
yes, it
I
does.
highly
I
suggest
try
save
not to
states
play with
with.
them,
I get that, but with these
but
classic games, man, we're adults.
yeah,
We don't have much time. I
I
highly
know.
suggest just using some
I
save states,
do
man.
I do
Like,
with Rondo of Blood. I was trying to play Rondo of Blood because I've beaten Symphony of the Night almost twice now,
yeah,
and I've never. It's a sequel, for
yeah,
Christ's sake.
yeah,
It's the
yeah,
second
yeah.
game in a series, and I was like, I've never played the original. What is wrong with me?
I would
So I
say
tried to
maybe
play
don't be
Rondo of
like
Blood.
super cheesy and save state in the middle of a fight and stuff like that, maybe. But
Right, yeah,
as
literally
far as
before a
like,
phase or something like
yeah,
that. Yeah,
yeah,
but I have been save stating the crap out of that game because and it well it doesn't fully let you. It just lets you like restart at the beginning of a section of the level or whatever. But
right.
um that game is hard as fuck. It's like one of these, but it's not. I don't get it, man. The second level has got my ass beat. I've beaten the first game.
Yeah.
I've beaten the first Castlevania, and this game has got me stumped.
Maybe they were
And
like,
I
after making the first one, they made the sequel and everybody was griping about it. And they were like, you know what? Fuck
right.
those guys. They want the first game. Fine. We'll just release the first game, but none of you
Mhm.
little shits are ever going to beat it. Maybe
Yeah,
it was something
we're
like
gonna do
that,
the
you know?
opposite
Like,
of what we did with Mario 2. We gave you a bullshit fake Mario 2 game because you guys couldn't fucking handle it. All right. It's 1990 now. We're out of the
oh
80s. We're
god.
going towards Super Nintendo. I don't give a shit anymore. Make it hard. No, no, no.
Wasn't it Castlevania that they actually did make harder when they brought it to America though? Instead of the
Yes.
usual where they made it
The
easier?
because the only version of Castlevania I have beaten is the Japanese version
Yeah, yeah. I
because
thought
there
so.
is an
I
easy
thought it was that
mode.
one. I don't know about like 3, but
There's an easy
the
mode
first game, yeah.
for the first one.
Yeah.
No, and there isn't a Japanese version of every Castlevania game in this collection on here. It's
Mm,
only
okay.
limited ones. For instance, there isn't a Japanese version of 2 on here. It's just 1 and 3 for the NES
Okay.
versions. So the I've beaten the first game Japanese version because the normal mode on the Japanese version is the only mode available on the American version.
Mm-hmm.
But in the Japanese game, you can play an easy mode. Now, that could be a sort of redux of some kind because technically the Japanese version available is not like the Famicom version.
Right.
It
Well,
was
wasn't
some
it
kind of re-release.
Famicom Disk System is what they
Yeah,
released Castlevania on, right? Which had
yes,
like
I
more
believe so.
storage space and slightly higher
Yeah, it's what they
capabilities, better
released Legend of Zelda
sound,
on.
etc.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because many people don't
Yeah.
know, but the Famicom came out like a few years before it ever came out in
Yeah.
the
The
US.
States.
It came out in like
Yeah.
'83 in Japan, and it was going the whole time. It didn't even get popular in the US till like '86 or '7. So
Yeah. Well, it had a very
they were
limited
old.
release at first, like just select stores and stuff, and because we just had the big video game crash in America from
That's
Atari,
true.
like a handful of
Right.
years before that. So nobody was sure if video games would even sell, but Nintendo was
hmm
willing to take the risk, but they wanted to do it gently, and then obviously it ended up blowing up.
I like
But yeah.
doing things gently. Yeah, I prefer it
Um,
that way. Anyway, I really dig Christian. The last thing I'd have to say about Castlevania 3 is the music. My God, it
it
has
is
a
pretty
beautiful
good.
soundtrack.
Just
It
listening
is
to it, yeah,
banging.
it's
I
pretty good.
listen to it by itself. There is the Famicom Disk System has a separate version of the soundtrack that has more channels,
Right, yeah.
more audio channels available. So
Because they
they
had
have
like an
layered,
extra sound chip, if I remember correctly.
yeah.
The disc
So they
system
have
add-on.
layered the soundtrack for this version of the game and the Famicom version of the game on top of each other on YouTube and remixed it, and it sounds like a full fucking orchestra
Oh,
of synth
nice, dude.
music.
Nice.
It's amazing, and I listen to it in my free time. So I'm a little biased, obviously, because I'm
Just a wee
such a
bit.
huge fan of the franchise in general. But I would say that the music for this game is standout. It is
I can see
probably the
you
best music
being
in the
very
franchise.
careful with the stairs this time.
Yes. Oh my God. I was like, okay, so you just press the up button, then just go up the stairs, and
Oh
everything's gonna
god.
be fine. Get to the top, and don't let him hit me. Wait until he leaves. Get him. All right, and jump over the thing. Now I swear to God.
Well, I mean, we never really talked about it, but I guess we
Woo!
should. Would you play more Castlevania 3, sir?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Good. Good
I
deal.
want to get good at this series. Like I want to practice. I want to put concerted effort.
GITGUD.
Yes, into
Get
practicing this
good.
franchise to get better at it because I enjoy playing it so much, but I'm not that good at classic Castlevania in its hardest, most purest form.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not that good at it because Symphony of the Night, I will admit, is a lot easier to play than other Castlevania titles. It is just easier to maneuver the character. There's more things you can
Oh,
do, so
for sure.
you have more
Yeah.
options to fight. You can
I've
dodge
never even
out of the
played it, but I
way.
can tell you that's true. Like,
Yes. You can do many things with the character that you simply can't in these games. You can only jump and hit your whip, and you can barely jump and move in
yeah, it's
left and right
very
direction.
stiff.
It's
Very
very
stiff.
stiff. You have to press
Mm-hmm.
the arrow button to jump before hitting the jump button.
Yeah.
So you can't jump and then control where you're going in midair. You have to be sure of where you're going before you do, which is impossible sometimes in these games. So
Well,
this game has been really good experience. I will play just one more level. Christian, does it look something that
yeah,
that entices
100%.
you?
I've been interested in the Castlevania series forever. I did
Mhm.
beat one, the American version,
I
and
know.
I
There's so much
started
bragging rights
playing.
for
I started playing two,
that.
but I got annoyed with it before I ever finished it. But it is on my
Fair.
list of things to go back and play at some point. I too own
Hmm.
the Anniversary Collection, as well as
Hmm.
a myriad of classic consoles and emulation
Right.
boxes like the Nintendo Minis and shit like that. So I do
Hmm.
plan on doing so eventually. It's
I'm
not exactly
endlessly
at the
impressed
top of
with this
my
room.
list right now, but
Hmm.
I use a website called Infinite Backlog a lot. It's a website. It's kind of social media for gamers, but also kind of like your game catalog tracker sort of stuff and whatnot. And they have this cool challenge feature,
Hmm.
and where like you can accept different challenges to do things. Usually beat a game within a certain time period, or
Hmm.
beat a collection of games or whatever. And I am subscribed to the Castlevania one because I do plan on beating them at some point. So 100%
Nice.
for sure.
I
I love that.
that
Onto
is
onto the spikes and then
uh,
just fucking yeet it off the level.
and
Perfect.
this is I'm pretty sure this is where I gave up because you have to
Speaking of
restart the
giving up,
entire level from that point.
going from retro to somewhat new, I,
Yeah.
John, have been playing a little bit of Phasmophobia, since it
Ooh,
is,
let's
it's
check
it's
back
it's
in with
spooky season.
Phasmophobia. It's been a while.
Um,
I haven't played this with you since last Halloween, I believe.
there have been
You and
updates.
Rue and
Yeah, there
good.
have been
That's probably
updates to the
good.
game.
Yeah.
The item system is completely different now. You
Okay.
still like have the items like you did before, but now you start out with the most basic version of it, like a really shitty, just the glow stick, for instance, not the UV actual light.
Okay.
And then you have to like get to a certain level to unlock the
Okay.
actual UV flashlight.
Okay.
Um, and then like you can get
So
like
it's
another
not
upgraded version
all
after that.
money. It's not all money based
Yeah,
anymore, is
yeah.
what
So
you're
you
saying?
do have to like buy the upgrade once you get to that level.
Okay.
But you have to be a certain level to even be allowed to buy the upgrade though.
Okay. Okay.
So like there's
See,
a
that's
little bit
interesting.
more to it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
More
And
ghosts,
I
some
enjoy
changes
that
to the
because
levels. Right now specifically there's a Halloween event going on.
yeah.
I don't know if we'll get to it in the footage or not, but I'm pretty sure we completed the Halloween event in the footage that I recorded here. So,
well,
I mean, I
cool.
had already done it before, so it was just like one of the guys in the group didn't have it completed, so it was just throwing the stuff. You make a potion, is the
fun.
event.
Love making potions.
And then you have to like collect recipe cards from a bunch of different levels to figure out what to put in to the potion.
Okay.
And then you come to this level and find all of the ingredients and actually put it in the pot in the cauldron.
Fun.
So yeah.
But for anybody who that is really fun. I was just going to say I like that a lot better about the item system because I was always frustrated early game when I was trying to grind by myself and just trying to get my level up and trying to get more cash. That
highly suggest against that in general.
Yeah, so I didn't have stuff to do that with. I would try to go do that, and I didn't have anybody's stuff because one of the biggest things that is an advantage of playing with a group is everybody can contribute to the items that you take with you, so that you can
do the
job more effectively.
To be clear, like I might have items unlocked that you don't. You have all of the essential items unlocked to figure out what the ghost is from the beginning.
Gotcha.
But there's a lot of like helpful items, say like sound detectors or parabolic microphones or motion detectors and things like that, which you won't have unlocked until later still. But it's definitely meant to be a multiplayer game in general.
Like absolutely.
You can play solo, of course, but it's best played with friends 100%.
I've always wanted to jump into random matches, but I've always been so nervous because you have to talk to people.
I don't know, man. I just don't. I'm not a random kind of person. I'm hardly a multiplayer person in general.
Fair.
And then playing with a random group, just like even less so.
Yeah, I mean, I do enjoy it. I don't hate it, but it's always so awkward. But the thing is, like, people that I would typically want to play with are playing at different times of the day and night than I am.
Right.
As for anybody that doesn't know, I exist on an opposite schedule of Christian. Essentially, I'm an early morning person, and he's an early night person. So
not at all.
An early morning person and an even earlier morning person, actually.
I mean, I go to bed at like 5 a.m, so make that what you will.
By that point, I have started an hour of my day already. I'm up at 4. So like that's like,
if I may, just for anybody
early
who doesn't know what Phasmophobia is. It's a ghost hunting game. That's all it is, right? There's no real lore to the game. I mean, there may be some, but not really. Like
it seems like they're adding more as it
you
goes
get
along.
into a lobby with your friends. You pick a location to go to where there have been ghost sightings, and then a random ghost will spawn in there and try to murder you. And your goal is to figure out what the ghost is, and leave before everybody dies. Basically.
Yeah. Well, and how do you figure out what the ghost is, and how do you figure out if it's trying to get you or not?
Well, you'll know if it's trying to get you because it'll get you. But as far as finding it out, it does. It has a couple different modes. One is like a scare mode sort of thing where like the ghost just has different events that it can do. Here I found out that they never programmed a way for the character to fall. At least in standard gameplay. So you just teleport down. Like, you just fucking teleport down. But if you're playing in VR, because that's the other thing, this game does have a VR mode. So if you're playing in VR, your character actually falls, like, physically, like physics-based falling. But if you're playing with keyboard and mouse, you just fucking teleport.
I don't understand why, because it's just, I mean, literally, if
it is different
built into the engine, your character would just fall. Like, look,
the characters, when you're playing in VR, it works differently. You have a belt that you can put stuff on, and things can like be turned on while it's on your belt. You can hold more things while you're in VR. The character actually like moves with your body and whatnot in VR, whereas like when you're not in VR, not really. You know, you're a lot more rigid, sort of thing. You can't like put your arms out and shit. So, like, I think it's just But anyways, so yeah, how you figure out what the ghost is though? You use the different items that you have to try and collect evidence. For example, the one I'm running around with is the UV light, which when the ghost interacts with something, there's a chance they'll leave behind a handprint that can be picked up with the UV light. You can also have them walk through a salt pile, and if they walk through a salt pile, there's a guaranteed UV spot where they walk through it for a short period of time.
Nice.
You also have freezing temperatures, so you have a thermometer that you can try and find freezing temperatures with. The basic version of it sucks because it takes like 3 minutes for it to get an accurate temperature reading. There's also EMF, electromagnetic frequencies or whatever that you can pick up, and if it gets to a certain level, that's a sign of the ghost. You can try to talk to the ghost using a radio to see if it replies to you. You can use a camera to see if you can see like little ghost orbs flying around while you're looking through a night vision camera. And then they have a dots projector, which is like a laser that shoots out 100 small beams, and you can see if it makes an outline of the ghost. And that's pretty much it, I think. Oh, here you go. I'm about to die. So yeah, there you can see there. Like it's pretty obvious when the ghost wants to get you.
Ghost hands. Boom, and then you end up in purgatory.
Yeah, and then you end up in purgatory for a moment while the game loads, and then you go into the actual like dead mode here, where you can. Once you are a ghost, you're pretty limited in what you can do. You can pick up stuff and throw stuff. At least certain items, not everything, but certain stuff. Here you can see us throwing the stuff into the cauldron to make the potion,
but you can
even
help
though we're dead.
Your teammates by giving them clues.
You can do that, so you can't talk to your teammates anymore once you're dead, but since you can interact with stuff, you can kind of like leave a path of items to try to show them a specific area, or like get their attention by throwing stuff at them, and then they can ask you questions once they know you're there, like, hey, is there writing in the ghost book? That's another thing.
I absolutely love watching the VR character move around as that David.
So no, but it's Lily. But the VR is another thing. When you're a ghost, you can actually see what the VR player is holding and walking around with.
Yeah.
So like normally whenever a ghost picks something up, that item just disappears until they throw it. But in VR, you can see that stuff just floating around in the air. So you can do all different kinds of like hand gestures, wave yes or no sort of stuff to answer questions. It's really neat whenever you're either in VR or playing with someone in VR. It's a lot of fun.
So I find it interesting that the radio can communicate with the dead. Because if anybody's ever tried to use a walkie-talkie in real life to just communicate across a short distance...
It's not a walkie-talkie. You do have a walkie-talkie.
That's fair.
To talk with people with, but the ghost can't interact with the walkie-talkie. It can make it like go fuzzy and stuff, but yeah.
Yeah, but I just think, also I'd like to comment. I find it interesting
all twerking
that, like,
right now. By the way, that's what we're doing. We're just
that's what you want to call twerking, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, very rigid when you're playing in keyboard and
mouse. You just got to get good. That's all. But what I would just like to say is, okay, 1940s, right? World War II. Stay with me. World War II. I'm a dad now, so we talk about World War II. World War II.
As you do, yeah.
This dude, President Roosevelt, whatever.
That guy,
World War II.
Yeah.
He used to talk to people on the radio at night, right? Okay. Everyone would gather. You've seen pictures. They'd gather around this giant, hilarious floor model radio, and they would piece of furniture and listen to him talk about the war. Okay?
Yeah.
TVs weren't popular yet. So anyway, he did that in the fucking 40s from thousands of miles away. Why can I not communicate across a department store with a walkie-talkie if apparently radios have gotten to the point where we can now commune with the dead?
There's actually multiple reasons for that. One is the frequency that it uses. Consumer walkie-talkies, I believe, use just high frequency signals. And then like for long range, you would be using like VHF or UHF, very high frequency or ultra high frequency signals, which have a lower data transfer.
My old TV.
Yes. They have a lower data transfer rate, but they can pass through things more easily. The longer the frequency, the more easily it can pass through an object. Because basically,
I see.
Roughly here, you can say that if, say I wanted a signal to go through my analog pocket here, right? Then that signal would need to be wider than the analog pocket. Roughly. It doesn't exactly work like that, but just for napkin math sort of thing, you can say that. So the higher the frequency, the longer the signal. So if it's a very fine frequency, right, and it's only half the length, it's probably not going to go through. But if it's a high frequency and it's this fucking long, then it's going to have no problem passing through it and going on. But anyways, and then consumer walkie-talkies tend to use, I believe it's just high frequency, not VHF or UHF. And then the other thing is power limits. There are laws on how much power can be put into a radio signal.
Okay.
And then obviously
so it doesn't
the more
like
power
disrupt
you put
the government's radio signals.
Yeah,
or?
basically, because a lot of people will pay money to own part of the spectrum, part of the radio spectrum.
See, and, this is why.
So, like, normal people like us can use parts of those spectrum over short range, but we're not allowed to broadcast it out in a super strong manner. There are public areas of the spectrum, so you can do stuff like that, but you would need to get, the equipment made to do it and stuff. Anyways.
Okay, well, how about this, radio people? I'm going to invent an even better version of radio communication that is just sound. I'm going to invent the biggest fucking megaphone.
Yeah,
and that's
just blasting sound out.
Just blasting sound. And then I'm going to say, you guys can't say shit because it's not a radio signal. It doesn't interfere with you. It's fine. It's fine. This is fine.
Pretty sure
I'm allowed to do this.
Every state has some sort of sound level laws.
Level, yeah, they do.
Yeah, like
that's why the cops get called if you're partying. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure that won't work. But
table
it try.
For now. We'll come back to it.
Right, we'll figure it out.
I'm still mad about this. We'll circle back.
But so
Phasmophobia is looking like it's really coming together, considering like the first time we played it. So we've done this game on the podcast before. First Halloween special, actually, we did Phasmophobia.
Was it first? Regardless,
it was, and that was all the way back in 2020. So I know. So it's been developing for a few years now, and they've been refining it and making it a more enjoyable experience each time, and that makes me really happy because I had never seen a game quite like this, and it still spooks me to play by myself. I'm still just a little.
I think it would be so much better to play in VR.
It's just a little creepy.
I think the creep factor would go up a million times. I have a VR headset. I've tried it. I almost threw up the first time I pressed the joystick. So
from fear, because you were so scared, right?
I get motion sick real bad, is what it is. But yeah,
Christian gets scared real bad. That's what it is, probably. Fear. I mean.
But no, if I highly suggest people try it out, though. It is really good. The only thing I don't like about the game is it can get a little bit samey.
Yeah,
it's good to be
I can imagine if you're grinding until you're level 1,000,
500 or something. Yeah,
right. Yeah, and you got all the money and all the equipment. Yeah,
it's really good when you have good friends that you can dick around with and whatnot to play. Right. But that's true of any multiplayer game. What I feel like the game honestly needs is some way to interact with the ghosts. Maybe like if you've seen Supernatural, maybe if it had like ways to fight back against the ghost. There are a couple items that can kind of postpone a hunt or cancel a hunt if it's already going on or whatever.
Or disable the ghost temporarily, something like that.
Temporarily, but like they're limited use items and you don't really have a way to fight back. They've added some interesting things you can do, like down there you may have seen a pentagram on the ground. It's summoning circle.
Because you can like trap it and take pictures of it, right?
You can't trap it, sadly, but you can summon it there, hence why it's called a summoning circle. But when you do that, it's going to murder you. At least one person. And it takes down everybody's sanity level, and the lower your sanity level, the more likely you are to die. So,
don't need it. That's fine.
So, like, there's huge negatives to it. There's also, like, Ouija boards you can use. There's this really cool mirror item.
Everyone knows those are good to use.
Yeah, 100%. The mirror lets you see through the ghost's eyes, but it takes your sanity down super quickly. And if the mirror breaks, then the ghost is going to hunt you down and probably murder you. So, like, they have added a lot of interesting things to the game. I just feel like it needs a new gameplay element other than just
like a new mode,
what the ghost
maybe.
Like something like that to keep.
I think it would be really interesting to do like some kind of time trial on the game to see like if you can speed run, because I've seen speed runs of the game, and it's incredible to watch these people actually say like, all right, so these conditions were met 1, 2, 3, and then this and this. Okay, so it must be a wraith, and then we're gonna do this.
Do have different behaviors. So you can use those behaviors to kind of try and tell what the ghost is too, especially because on the harder difficulties, they won't leave behind all of their evidence. Each ghost has 3 evidences that they leave behind. And on the higher difficulties, they might only leave 1 or 2 pieces of evidence. So then you just have to figure out from the remaining ghosts. Yes.
Since it started.
And you just have to figure out from the remaining ghosts what it is based off of how they were acting throughout it.
Whether or
But
not
yeah,
they're more
no.
aggressive, more visible, more
Yeah,
reacting
if
to
they
your
if they
sound or
become
to your
more
presence.
active whenever the power is turned on or the power is turned
Hmm.
off, if they're more active when you're alone or with a group of people,
Whether or not they
if
write in the book,
if
interact with your
they
other tools.
yeah, if they throw stuff around, if they can pass through
Hmm.
walls, if they refuse to walk
Hmm.
through salt, all different kinds
Right.
of things that you can use
It
to figure it out, just
burns
behavior
us.
wise, not even evidence wise, just behavior.
Right. Right. Right.
Um,
Right. Hmm.
but yeah, no,
But
it's a ton of fun to play with
yeah,
other people. If you're playing solo,
I
probably
miss it,
not worth it,
honestly.
to be
Yeah,
honest.
because
Like,
I haven't played it in a while because I haven't played it with.
if you're
I
up,
don't. I
we
just don't have the
play
opportunity.
twice a week.
Oh, really? Nice.
Not every week, but generally
It's
speaking, yeah.
rare.
If you're
It's
ever
gonna be a
awake.
rare occasion I'm awake this late. Probably. I
Right,
had to
right.
nap for this episode.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
had to.
I know you're not normally, but I'm just open
Yeah.
invitation. That's all, If you're on
Thank you.
vacation and you
I
happen to
appreciate
be
that.
up, or you wake up early and you can't
Oh,
sleep,
that would be
and
good. I should
let's
take a
see, it's like 1 o'clock.
vacation.
Yeah, you should. You
Oh,
should.
that
Those are
sounds
nice.
wonderful.
Those are nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I have for Phasmophobia. It's a great game. I'm definitely going
Okay.
to be playing more of it. But
Same.
it really does
I would also
need
love to
some
play
new
more
gameplay
Phasmophobia.
mechanics to keep it
Yeah.
interesting. And
Hmm.
if you're going to be playing it, I highly suggest you find a group of friends that you can fuck around with to play.
If not, get real comfortable meeting new people. Because
Yeah, or
there's
that, or that.
you can join random
Yeah,
games. That is the thing.
lobbies.
You can open
Hmm.
your game
Yeah.
and just have random folks join.
You really do
The
need a
couple of
microphone to play the
times,
game. I will say that
yes,
if you don't have a mic,
especially with random
you need
people,
one. The
'cause
ghosts
you
interact
have
to
to
your
interact with the
voice.
ghosts like that too. Yeah.
You don't have to. If the game can't detect a microphone, it'll just the only object that requires you to say something will just
Hmm.
randomly trigger every like 5 seconds, as if you had interacted with it.
Right.
So you don't
That's
technically
nice at
have to
least.
have one, but the game is a million times better with one. So
Oh yeah,
definitely,
because it
definitely,
doesn't
definitely.
it was that just a joke back in the day, like when the first time it came out, when we first played it, you used to tell me that swearing or vulgar language would
That
trigger
is
the ghost
apparently a
faster.
thing. I don't know if that is still a thing, but that was
Okay.
apparently a thing that
Okay.
certain words would trigger the ghost more. The
Yeah.
ghost
Yeah.
also gets triggered by its own name whenever you name the ghost. Not like what type
Yeah.
type of ghost,
I
but the
knew
name of the
that was
person
always
that
the thing
became
because it's on the
the thing.
whiteboard, like
Yeah.
in the truck, so
Um,
that you know the name. But
and then there's proximity based communication in the game, or a walkie
yeah, that
talkie
was
that
so
you can
cool.
use. So like yeah,
Hmm.
it really is. You should play with a mic
And
100%.
it came out with that standard. That wasn't even a thing they added. That was like that was always there, and I always thought that
Yeah,
was cool.
yeah,
That
yeah. That's
you
just part of the
always have the
game.
prox voice on, but then you also have the walkie-talkie because some of the
Hmm.
locations are really big, and
Yes, yes.
it's not likely that you would ever be near each other if you're playing with a full group and you all have your own equipment. So those like because we played in the school. The one time I know they've added since it was there the last time I played, but they added the prison.
Yep. And
There was a
there's a
school,
mental asylum is
a mental
another very
asylum,
large map.
right? Yeah, because we played the
Um,
school and the office building the last
yeah.
time we played in a few of the houses. And then the one of the new maps I got to play was the campsite. That was really fun.
Yes. Campsite's fun. They actually just
Very
updated
interesting.
it as part of this Halloween update. It's very
Mm.
different now than it was
Oh,
before. Very
okay.
different. So
Yeah, it was
yeah.
interesting before. I remember a lot of it looking kind of generic with the tents and stuff. So
Yeah. Yeah.
that'd be
There's now
interesting to see
like
an update.
buildings set up and like
Oh,
it's more
nice.
maze like and things. But
Oh, okay.
anyways,
Cool.
that's pretty much all I have for Phasmophobia. It's just it's spooky season. I've been playing a lot of it. There's other games I've been playing which I thought about talking about, but honestly, I'll probably
Hmm.
still be playing those games whenever we talk next month. So
Right.
yeah, I'll probably talk about one of them then.
Right.
Do
All right.
you want to talk about something indie, something a little? I mean, technically, I guess both of our games, the game that we
Are
talked
indie.
about together, the game that I talked about here, are both
Yeah.
indie. But do you want to talk about another indie game, John?